Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Trevor, I think it's time to pop open a cold one.
I heard nothing. It didn't. Your crack did not break the sound gate for the Discord call, I guess. So yeah, I heard nothing. But I'm glad you're back.
I'm aware of that because my backup audio that we're gonna have to use because my Discord audio is trash will have it.
Yeah.
So
all right. Yeah. So it's we got Cam drinking cold ones. I got myself a Mexican Coke here. Keep myself libated. No, that's not a word. Whatever. Let's have a podcast. We're going to be talking today a little bit about cursory Halo Infinite impressions. Both Cam and I have hopped in. Cam probably more than I have. But then the bulk of this episode is going to be our Ghostbusters Afterlife spoiler-free and spoiler-filled impressions. I saw it Thursday night, and then I enjoyed it so much that I was like, hey, Cam, you want to go see it Friday night? And so we went and saw it Friday night. So yeah. Before we dive into that, though, a little bit of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast everywhere you can, all that fun stuff. You can also support our other podcasts, That D Plus Show or That News You Care About, on podcast services, as well as our weekly YouTube Let's Plays that go up on Tuesdays and Thursdays at youtube.com/thatnerdysite. So go check out all that fun stuff, support all that stuff. So let's hop in first here with Halo Infinite. I was content. I've only played a couple matches, so I don't really have a ton to say, and I'm also not a Halo guy by nature. But what are your kind of cursory intro thoughts on Halo Infinite's multiplayer that kind of launched surprisingly on, what was that, Monday this week?
Yeah. Well, one, I was really surprised that I could play it. During the flight testing, they said that they weren't going to be supporting my graphics card because it's older.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that was just for the flight. I found out actually that it's likely that flight was a high performance flight. So that's why they weren't letting people use my era of graphics cards. But what I will say is that despite it being on lower settings graphics wise, game still looks great. Crisp. There's some clear stuff where it's not as great as it could be, but it's because it's sacrificing that look for performance. The game plays extremely well, but I'm currently level 15, almost level 16 on the battle pass, which is grueling because unlike other battle passes, this one, the biggest issue that came out with it, I think, is the battle pass takes a really long time to level up unless you're doing the challenges, and even if you're doing the challenges, it takes forever.
Yeah.
They've addressed that. They've doubled the XP rewards as well as doubled the XP boost that you get through the battle pass. So they've been adjusting it, and they're going to continue to adjust it to kind of find where that balance is. I have to say, after kind of the massive stumbles with the Master Chief Collection, Halo 5 being just a complete dud, 343 has really stepped it up.
For Master Chief Collection, you're referring to the launch issues that it had, right? Because as I understand it, that game's pretty fire now.
It's it's fantastic.
Yeah. They really turned it around, but yes, yeah. I remember
100%.
I remember the issues at launch. I mean, I didn't really encounter them a ton because I was only playing single player stuff, but I remember the conversation around those issues at launch. Yeah.
Yeah, massive amounts of just not just launch issues, but every time they released a new iteration of it out, they're okay, we're going to be launching the Halo 2 stuff, the 3, etc. There was that, but probably the biggest criticism for them is Halo 5, and I have to say they've really turned things around and done an amazing job as far as the multiplayer goes. The multiplayer is fun, it's exciting, it's fun, it plays so well, and the weapon balance is incredible. It is really just a standout overall performance, and I have just been sinking hours upon hours of time into this game. which is great. Like I love Halo. I was a Team Fortress 2 person for a really long time, and then I became an Overwatch person. But because Blizzard is sucks, fire Bobby Kotick, please, thank you. Because of that, I I've been kind of like searching for like a new game to like sink these multiplayer hours into, and it's gotten to the point, Trevor, I'm leveling up multiple classes in Final Fantasy 14 now. Currently have a level 53 Dragoon.
I
DPS.
still need to. I'm on the Shadowbringers quest. I'm basically like ready to go into like the dungeon on that quest. So I still need to do that. Maybe I'll do that today. And then I got.
If you want to wait till after my dinner tonight, we can do it together because I would love to do it with you.
Yeah, and we can hop in for that. Because I got it's that and a trial, and then I'll be done with Shadowbringers, and then just a handful of patch quests before Endwalker in a couple weeks. So I did it. Starting in May, I will have made it through all of Final Fantasy 14 in 6 months that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can appreciate that's you leveling up other classes and stuff. A significant time suck. You could have hopped into Fortnite. I picked up another dub in that after not having played it for the last couple days. No, it's absolutely fair.
I would rather.
I did get on point with today's topic though. I did pick up like Ghostbusters gear in the shop today. I was like, I've got some V-Bucks lying around. Sure.
Gross, disgusting.
Yeah. But
anyway,
Halo Infinite. So you're enjoying it. I mean, I'll just real quick hop in. Like I love that. Like, you're able to play it even with your crappy graphics card that is making it so I've barely heard a like coherent word from you this entire podcast so far because your graphics card apparently doesn't work with Discord, but it's good to know that it works with Halo Infinite.
It might be the graphics card issue. We'll see. I have to do more troubleshooting.
Yeah. But so I hopped into like 2 rounds that like day it came out or whatever. I did the tutorial stuff. So I picked up a couple achievements for doing the kind of tutorial walkthrough, whatever. And then I hopped into like a quick play game, 4v4, pretty evenly matched, like for the first like 20 kills or whatever. And then like the other team started running away with it. And I was like, well, I feel bad for whoever's playing with me. Oops. But then we hopped into
just Slayer. That's just how Slayer goes.
Yeah,
it either stays neck and neck or like somebody eventually just like steamrolls.
Yeah. And then then I hopped into a big team battle. And had some fun with that. It was what was it? We were I'm not gonna know the maps. I'm not even gonna know the game modes. We had to get 5 power cells or whatever and do that to like 3 points. And my team ended up winning that one. So I'm like 1-1 in my Halo Infinite multiplayer bouts so far. So yeah, that's my experience with the game.
Yeah, big team battles are extremely fun right now. They're there's something very extraordinary about them. I love it, and I'm just very excited to keep playing and continue to unlock stuff. Like, have I spent some money? Yeah, I spent some money. I spent some money on some of the cosmetic stuff. I don't regret it because I got some really cool cosmetic stuff. The problem is that I unlocked something very cool, but it's on a set of armor that is not the battle pass armor. So I had to go into that armor and buy some stuff to make it look cool and customize it the way I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look awesome no matter which armor set I'm wearing, whether it's the Mark V or the Mark 7 Mjolnir armor.
Well, there you go. I've also been playing Forza Horizon 5, but that matters less in this conversation. But it's a damn good fall for Xbox. They're crushing the game right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I very much look forward to, like, I enjoyed enough of how Halo played that I'm looking forward to hopping into the campaign again, despite the fact that I've only ever played Halo 1 and 2. But
yeah,
looking forward to hopping into.
Wait,
Halo
you never
Infinite.
finished the fight?
No.
Oh, that's an idea for Let's Plays.
It's one we've talked about, or we floated the idea about a few times of, yeah, like let's hop in and do basically a playthrough on not legendary, because I'm fucking not doing that, but just like hop in and do co-op of the normal game or something like that. But yeah, it's just a matter of getting that coordinated.
Wait, that means you've never played Reach then?
Yeah, no, I've not played Reach, not
You've
played
never
ODST.
played the best Halo game. Holy shit. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's tight. Like, it's considered Bungie's swan song for Halo.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, that is, to me, like, I'm loving what I'm playing, and depending on how the campaign is, it could go one way or the other. Like, I have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Reach is like the pinnacle of like what is Halo at its best, story wise, like combat wise, everything. I think that like what they're doing now with combat, like with the actual use of abilities and tools and stuff, I think is a better implementation of the armor loadouts that Reach introduced. So there's a lot of really cool stuff, and I would just like, I'm just loving it. I'm loving it, man.
You did just remind me. I did like. I think this might have even been before I actually like played anything Halo wise, but I did watch that Halo series that Xbox had that was like mini episodes or whatever with that was like lock centric around the Halo 5
that's
stuff.
around the Halo 5 stuff. Yeah, I didn't pay any attention to that because Locke is dumb, and so is everything about Halo 5.
Halo Nightfall. Yes, I watched Halo Nightfall back in 2014. Yeah, like I enjoyed it fine enough, and like that was before, or it might have been, like I don't think everybody hated Locke at that point. I think people were like cool and excited for that actor or whatever, and then like it came out, and then the game came out, and then people were like, "Oh, fuck this noise, we want more Master Chief." But I enjoyed it fine.
Well, especially for me, Master Chief reunited with like his old squad of Spartans. Including Fred. What up, Fred? Best, like, my opinion, best Gen 2 Spartan. Yeah, it's a lot of... There's a lot there about, like, oh, cool, we get to see all these Spartans together, and then you never get to focus on them because you're focused on Locke's squad. It's, yeah. It has problems, but it also had other problems where it's continuing Halo 4's story, which was... Halo 4 story was super sci-fi and alien, more so than Halo has ever done, which I liked. I thought it was super cool. But like, it's other people didn't care for it.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well, any other thoughts on Halo Infinite before we move on?
Yes, please put SWAT into the playlist. I miss SWAT so much.
All right.
SWAT is a play mode where it's only battle rifle. Which is the three round burst,
the pulse
scope rifle.
Yep.
The pulse, yeah. And then the handgun. Those are the only weapons. And you have, like, it's all about aiming and everything, and it's just the best.
All right.
Oh, I played so much SWAT and Reach.
Well, there you go. I mean, eventually you can like make that your own mode, right? Once they open up the Forge. Is that a thing?
Oh,
that you can do?
once they open up, dude, the Forge is gonna, you can do that.
Yep.
The Forge is gonna be, it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah.
Because
especially with the game on Game Pass, like, and anybody has or like not even on Game Pass, right? It's like the multiplayer barrier is like the multiplayer is free for anybody. So, but yeah, I mean awesome. The fact that like Forza had 10 million people playing it in its like first weeks, like I think Halo Infinite is gonna be through the roof. So, shout out to Microsoft making the smart moves right now. But yeah, let's pivot away from that and chat Ghostbusters Afterlife. So again, I've already seen it twice. So I'm a proponent and fan of the film. And you and I talked a little bit about the movie afterwards. So much so that you were like, at this point we're podcasting, so let's just hold off until the podcast. But for the listeners, what are your kind of spoiler-free impressions of Ghostbusters Afterlife there, Cam?
I really, really loved and enjoyed this movie. People need to go out and see it. I'm not going to tell you that you'll enjoy it. I'm not going to tell you that it's great or good. That I'm going to leave that completely up to you, because I do not want you to I walked into this movie with absolutely no expectations whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just didn't like, I had not watched too many of the trailers. I had not watched a lot of stuff or read a lot of stuff. I walked in because I wanted to kind of like give this movie a fair shot. And I think it's the best thing that I could have done for this movie because I was just really, really impressed by it. I really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic, but I really think it's something that you as an audience member need to listen to or need to listen when I tell you, go see it for yourself. If you've already seen it and you're ready to hear more about what we have to say about it, stay tuned. But otherwise, pause the podcast, go watch this movie, then come back. Because it's really, really, really worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there for me. Like, for as few movies as I've gotten to see in theaters this year because of everything, like I find myself, and I saw, I was thinking this last night too, because I also went and saw Tick Tick Boom last night, which we'll talk about on a later episode at some other point. But like I was thinking, I got to see In the Heights, I got to see Tick Tick Boom. We've got West Side Story coming out, so good year for like musical theater fan Trevor. But then like Ghostbusters Afterlife and Free Guy have been like a couple of my favorite movies of the year, just like for the sake of just them, let alone the typical Marvel standouts and the enjoying those kinds of things. But yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife, like I went in like I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan. This was the second Ghostbusters I've seen in a theater with you, though, because we went into that movie party a couple years back or whatever for the first Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
which was
That was
a
so
ton
much
of fun.
fun.
Yeah, but I think I've mentioned to you before, like I grew up more so with Ghostbusters 2, as like that was the one that I was like more routinely watching. So like I enjoy that, and then like going back and watching like the first Ghostbusters and stuff, it's like okay, yeah, like I mean this is obviously very fun and like they like had a great idea for a film, but like it like I'm definitely on the like layman versus Greg Miller. I'm way more on the layman side of like Ghostbuster fandom kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But going in, like I'm still a sucker for telling a good story, and this tells a good story. And the way I described it kind of to you is like it's like not a Ghostbusters movie. It has like a Ghostbusters wrapping, or like but it's much more like a Goonies type of movie or an E.T. type of movie. It is like kids going on an adventure that just happens to have like the Ghostbusters kind of paint job.
Which I think I think actually that makes it a Ghostbusters film, because the original Ghostbusters movie was, we're going to tell like a great comedy movie, and it just happens to be around this idea of busting ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Like the best Ghostbusters movies are movies that are specific for what they're trying to do as a film, and then they just so happen to be Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why you get, like, I would put Afterlife and Ghostbusters 1 and even Ghostbusters 2, because Ghostbusters 2, it was now a family comedy film versus a like regular comedy film. Like, I would actually just go as far as to say Ghostbusters 2 is a family film.
Mm-hmm.
On that level.
I mean, and I would say like
yeah.
Afterlife is also very much a family film, but with a little bit more adventure for and like obviously younger skewing protagonists help factor into that. But
I think when I think of like, are the Goonies and stuff like that, E.T. family films? Yes, but it's focused around children being the main characters versus adults being the main characters. And so I would actually put Ghostbusters Afterlife kind of within like kind of that same vein as Ghostbusters 2, but I think it's better because whenever you tell stories about, young people coming into their own, it leaves you with a different kind of feel good than you get from other, like a story about adults being adults and succeeding in what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because also Ghostbusters 2 is about getting the band back together.
Mm-hmm.
It is a reunion movie as well. Like, it very much is a, like, it's funny because it came out just like only a couple of, like, only so many years after the first film, but in and of itself, it is a, like, legacy film. Like if you spaced it out 10, 20 years, Ghostbusters 2 could still be Ghostbusters 2. They would just be older. Like, you see that with, like, the sequel films that are coming out now of, like, old 80s and 90s films. Like Cobra Kai as a series. This is a bad example, but Coming to America Part 2.
Basically this whole genre of, like, hey, let's take things from the 90s and make these long overdue sequels. Your Dumb and Dumber 2, because it wasn't Dumb and Dumber, because that was already a thing that exists. But yeah, like that whole ilk of, and this very much is a sequel to, like, maybe it's a sequel to Ghostbusters 2, but it's much more a sequel to the first Ghostbusters, which obviously is like 37 years old at this point, because it predates me by a year.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that makes, like, so Ghostbusters 2, as far as, like, being a family film, is much more of, like, that reunion, getting, like, the reunification of a non-prototypical family unit, in the friendships and bonds between, you know, the guys, and Dana, of course, with her baby. There's that, and then you have but this one is very much they do such a great job with it, and we'll talk about it more in spoilers, but like, it is a film about family, about responsibilities and legacy, and about how, like, relationships break down over time. And that's, like, the adult stuff that is in the background of what is just a fun romp of a film of kids finding Ghostbusters stuff and busting ghosts. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, last little bit before we dive into the spoiler stuff that I want to kind of touch on is, like, great performances, in particular McKenna Grace as kind of Phoebe, who's our like primary point of view, like, really the protagonist character. Like, she just knocks it out of the park from minute one, like, knows exactly who this character is, and, like, every moment she has hits for me really well. Paul Rudd's always a delight, of course. No surprise there. And then it tells a great, like, story on a couple fronts. It tells a great story, kind of continuing the story set out in Ghostbusters, but then it also tells, like, a very heartfelt family, as you kind of touched on, like kids coming into their own, or finding themselves, and even, like, I would extend that even to, like, the mom a little bit of, like, finding herself, you know, in this new situation that she wouldn't have, you know, like, she grows a lot more even that she would not have grown had the events of this movie kind of not kicked her into a different gear. So yeah, lots of just real good fun stuff there. Yeah. I also will say, I really enjoy the character of Podcast. Dumb little name, but cool little kid.
Oh,
and I enjoyed the hell out of him.
Yeah, he's great. I will say, I think a lot of people, myself included, will be surprised to see that Finn Wolfhard is a supporting role in the film.
Mm-hmm. Just because he's not much more, like, especially, like, a lot of the advertising is built around him because of, like, the Stranger Things and it. Like, his status. His status as kind of an actor gets a little bit more love, but yeah, he's very much kind of a ancillary character in this story, or support role. I mean, he has his moments to shine too, but it's very much like, this is Phoebe's movie.
It's important to note, like, this is a mother-daughter film in a lot of ways. It is a father-daughter, mother-daughter film in ways, and so that is really a primary focus for this film as far as, like, the emotional story it's telling. But, like, Finn Wolfhard's character of Trevor gets plenty of spotlight. Like, he is definitely without a doubt a secondary character. and he has his moments. I am interested though because I was listening to the Kind of Funny guys talk about it, and they mentioned that in a lot of the trailers, there's a lot of footage that wasn't used in the film,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm really curious about like a director's cut when this eventually comes out on DVD or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm super curious about like what that could look like if they put all of those scenes in there in order, like in process, because they had to get it down to like this. Also, is like not that long of a movie.
Yeah. Like a little over 2 hours or something. Yeah, I mean there's
it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, there's definitely that. There is like from like the deleted scenes or whatever. Like I imagine there will be probably a little bit more for the Trevor character played by Finn Wolfhard. But I still think in the writing and in the script, this is still almost certainly a Phoebe movie, and he'll maybe have a little bit more motivation as to like why he's working on the Ecto one, or maybe a little bit more scenes to kind of build his relationship with the other kids or with the love interest Lucky kind of thing. But I don't think a director's cut's going to drastically like make this more of like a balance between their
I don't think
so
stories. Either. No, I'm just really excited for that. Honestly, I'm just more excited for more of this film.
Yeah.
This film is just that exciting. So I think we're good on spoilers.
Yeah,
at this point.
Absolutely. So last chance. So we're diving into spoiler territory. So duck away now. And yeah, go check out Ghostbusters Afterlife. A roaring endorsement from the both of us.
Here there be spoilers.
Indeed. So yeah, hit me with some of the spoiler stuff you want to talk about there, Cam.
Okay, the biggest thing that I want to say I have taken away from is that I know they're little assholes, but more like a million times yes, I would adopt an entire like a dozen of those little
Stay Puft marshmallow things. Yeah, and like even that, like that's not even spoiler necessarily because that's in the trailers and stuff that those little fuckers are in this movie. But that's like I enjoyed the Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. I don't think they really like. They're not worked into the film in a very natural way, especially given like the lineage of Stay Puft in Ghostbusters. It's not like Stay Puft Marshmallow Men have like been a paranormal activity creature for the last 30 some odd years, whatever, since the first movie. So the fact that they just suddenly start like popping up in little mini form, it's like, okay, but like why? Oh, because it's a Ghostbusters and exactly merchandising and the advertising, the almighty buck. But like the couple moments they get are just like fun chaos energy of like, all right, these little things can't do a lot of damage, so at least there's that, but they will fuck themselves up or they will fuck up like each other pretty much. And then if you get a whole bunch of them together, they'll fuck up some wiring and stuff on the proton packs.
Oh my gosh, they're little they're gremlins basically from the movie
exactly,
Gremlins. Yeah. But they are adorable, and I love them. I think they're the most adorable little assholes in the world. And like, do I love them because they're assholes? 100%. Like, if they were just like little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men, it'd be like whatever. But because they're sinister little monsters, it's somehow more adorable. Like when they get into the Ecto one and they're just like fucking it up, and just like, and you just hear them going and like making like little noises out of nowhere. You're like, oh, this is the payoff for them showing up and that in the Walmart. This is the payoff. Great. Yeah. I'm in. I'm like, oh, that's such a good payoff of that. Yeah. Of like because otherwise you're just like, oh, you're just doing this for the sake of like, oh yeah, Stay Puft Marshmallow Men, funny. Call back to Ghostbusters 1. But they're like, oh no, they actually have an integral point to the plot, which is they cause a delay, which adds more drama to the final scene. Yeah. And this is why I wanted to, I saved this for spoilers, because when Podcast lights them all up, and like it's just like covered in marshmallows, it's just it's so good.
I was gonna say, like, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Men have like 3 solid beats in the movie. They have their kind of introduction scene where they're just like the embodiment of chaos and Like they're like you got like little fruity drink umbrellas like piercing them and then like them also like falling down or like floating down the shelving units and stuff like that. But then like you go over to the grill setup and they're walking on the grill or lighting like throwing each other onto the grill or lighting it on fire or just like making s'mores with like a butane torch kind of thing. And so yeah, all like that whole like the whole Walmart sequence of them fun as like a cool, that's a nice little gag. And yep, there's all your merchandising at the gate. But yeah,
when one of them takes the other, lays them down on the graham cracker,
mm-hmm.
and then another one brings up chocolate,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, where's this going? And then the one brings the butane lighter and like melts it down. It's like, this is hilarious. The one that does the shish kebab skewer on the two and like lifts them up and like starts roasting them over the fire on the grill.
Yep.
But and then the blender
exactly, yeah, the blender's another one, yeah, like because it's like the blender one's fun in particular because like they just kind of like keep teasing you with it, like they keep pushing the buttons and like it ends up being like two fighting over the buttons, and you're just watching the one in the blender the whole time, just waiting for what is inevitably going to happen, and he does like the flying thing, like it in like one of those indoor skydiving kind of bits, then he just kind of spins around a lot, and then finally just like explodes onto the screen. But even after he has exploded onto the screen, like the or on the glass, like the glass still smiles or has like you get like a brief glimpse of a like pureed Stay Puft Marshmallow smile. So it's like, okay, well that has a whole other connotation that even in death these guys are still like cognizant or whatever.
They're just just joyful little assholes, man, and I just love it.
And also riding around on a Roomba. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So yeah, like fun little introduction there. But then the second beat that you have with them is them destroying the proton or like messing up the proton pack and messing up with Podcast in the Ecto 1. And then you get Podcast basically turning the tables, zapping them all, and then getting like full end of Ghostbusters decked out like just covered in goop for that little payoff between him and Ray as well, which obviously leads into another. I mean, like that the whole like really the spoiler section is for that whole end sequence.
Oh, it's true, that end sequence is like honestly I couldn't have asked for a better end sequence. It's so like there's no messing around, guys. We know what to do. They immediately cross the streams, like they know what they're doing. Oh, Gozer's learned about the crossing the streams, uncrosses the streams.
Yeah.
Just
so
good. Like it's so good on so many levels. Man.
So spoiler, like obviously the Ghostbusters show up, and I also have listened to the Kind of Funny Spoilercast on the or Kind of Funny interview kind of thing, and like Tim nails it very much in the same way that I did. Like one of the weaker elements is that the Ghostbusters just show up, like just Deus Ex Machina, like, which is a little like, that could have been handled better. But as soon as they're there, like they all just like fall back into those roles of obviously Ray being like by the book kind of thing, Venkman being Bill Murray, and then like Winston just being like Winston about everything. And just a lot of fun ways. I obviously a lot of the like the jokes you probably knew were come and hit. At least they hit for me. Like the like, are you a god? And then like just long enough of a beat for Venkman to say like, come on, Ray, like you know what to say to this time, and Ray does buy into it.
Yes.
Yes, we are all gods down here or whatever. Yeah.
So good.
Love the bit after they get blasted back or whatever. Venkman tries to like kind of sweet talk and buy time from Gozer and like as a distraction, then Winston like tries to zap and she just immediately like puts him back down and Venkman's just like, well, it was worth a shot. But then of course like the just the beautiful payoff really to the whole movie, the emotional beat there is Phoebe gets Gozer like with the thing. They have their absolutely like end of Deathly Hallows kind of standoff of the wands or whatever. And then the ghost of Egon, who we got kind of a wonderful like opening introduction sequence of, who we very easily could like see as Egon, but like was masked in shadow, obviously for, Harold Ramis related reasons. But
For those of you who don't know, Harold Ramis is dead.
yes, indeed. Yeah, he passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. So like it was like, from all the marketing stuff, it was obvious like, okay, these are Spengler's family. These are Egon's family somehow. So like, what's going to happen? I didn't think we were going to get like that opening sequence of Egon, basically like running down and doing his whole face off kind of stuff. But they did it so well because like they kind of keep him in shadow the whole time. I'm looking through the through IMDb, and basically the stand-in for that was Bob Gunton, who is probably best known as the crooked warden from Shawshank Redemption. So
wait, what?
Yeah, like
okay,
or he was Leland Owsley in Daredevil and stuff. But yeah, he was there kind of as the Egon stand-in in the shadows for those little bits. So shout out to him, kind of stepping in for that very like largely thankless, almost uncredited kind of role.
Yeah.
But yeah, he like we get that great sequence of Egon kind of setting things up, and then we get the payoff of him, like, because obviously he's a presence throughout the movie also with with his kind of like leading Phoebe and then leading the mom down into the secrets of his farm. But like, yeah, the seeing the ghost hands, like, they fucking did it. And then like they commit to doing it, in that like,
yes,
it's
they do.
not just his, like, they pan up and there's the ghost visage of Harold Ramis as Egon, kind of helping, and beautiful moment for like the family dynamics there, but then also beautiful payoff of him as a ghost standing alongside the remaining living Ghostbusters, as a beautiful send off, both in universe and out of universe, of them kind of getting to say goodbye to that actor and that character. In like, just like, both times I've seen it, gets me emotional, tears up, and I'm just like, yes, they nail that 100% for me.
The moment that I like gets me, like, looking back on it, is when Winston says, "I should have called."
Yeah. I should have called. It's really good. I think Peter has like, I figured you'd turn up or something like that. Yeah.
Ray apologizes for not believing him.
Yeah.
There's some, like, there is like we get quote unquote told what happens, but there is definitely like, it wasn't just like one day out of the blue Egon took off with the stuff at the firehouse. It was like, there had to have been like a systematic breaking down of those relationships over time. And so I think a lot of people are like, well, just like, he just took it out of nowhere. It's like, you're hearing the story in post. People don't, like, when these relationships, these thick as Steve bonds relationships break down, they don't break down usually over like one big thing. And it just doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's a slow and tedious erosion of relationships. He says, okay, business started getting scarce again. Okay, if business starts getting scarce again, does that, like, money issues? Egon's always blowing cash on like technical equipment and stuff. Like, you can see the arguments that definitely probably happened between Egon and the other three members of the Ghostbusters. And then you also get Winston, who wants to kind of like go and like be his own man and do his own thing later. Like, and like, people get pulled off in other directions. Like, it's a natural part of life. But on top of that, if you have somebody who's trying to hold on and everybody else is trying to move on, it hurts the person who's holding on.
Yeah.
And Egon already had a problem talking to people.
I mean, that's, like the elements of okay, things started falling apart, and then as things started falling apart, Egon was getting more and more into like figuring out what was really going on with Ivo Shandor and and doing that whatever research he'd been doing that ultimately leads him to boom, cut ties and bounce and say, okay, if I'm not going to have their backing, I'm going to go do it on my own.
Well, I think it's also a matter of Egon didn't know what to expect when he went out there, so he left everybody behind. And in somebody like Egon's mind, in his mind, that's the best way of protecting the people he cares about.
Maybe. I mean, like there's I will say that there's a lot of like room for interpretation in that in the 30 years between, basically. Because yeah, it's just like okay, well, I mean, like especially when you factor in like we didn't like. I mean, the Kind of Funny guys talk about this as well, but like the Egon from like the first movie is so in love with science that no, he probably would try and like bring other people along with the science and with the nerdiness of it or something like that. And so maybe it was that somebody else kind of pushed him away, but they don't dive into that. They don't give us any kind of concrete answers on that. So we end up having to spin off into these theories. Yeah. And there's like, since that's so unspoken and it could go any number of ways, I'm going to say like there's not too much point in like diving down all those deep rabbit holes. At least not for the sake of a podcast. Like we can absolutely kind of have those weird conversations of like, well, what do you think really happened here? But for the
I would say for me, I looked at it more of like the change. Like they're like, what changed? I'm like, I think he became a dad.
I mean, maybe, but like
from what I've been told by other people, becoming a dad really changes a person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have children that I know of. Definitely don't have any kids. Like that dumb joke aside, sorry, I said it immediately. I was like, that's a dumb joke. Brush it right under the rug. Let's go. But like, I don't have any kids, but like every single person I know who's a father is like in a lot of ways a radically different person than they were before they were a father.
Yeah, I mean
and so I think that could definitely have changed things as well.
Really,
then we're getting into the age issues, and that's where things also kind of get murky.
Yeah, that's really, I think that's structurally, I think that's a weakness of the story is they're set up as Egon's family for very particular beats, knowing that they don't have to actually put in the work to like explain how or why. Like the fact that we don't get any clues as to like who Egon's mom was, or like we get none of that like backstory because they didn't need, like they were like, we don't care about telling that story. We just want to tell the story of like a granddaughter. Like ultimately, I think if they had their druthers, it'd be like Phoebe would be like the daughter of Egon, but timing wise, that just wouldn't work out with the story that they kind of wanted to tell here. So they kind of had to throw in another generation in there, and that makes everything murky and weird and all. And yeah, the timeline of everything, it's like, okay, but wait, what? And since they don't like go into that, like that's just kind of one of the like, okay, like we needed a couple more answers for that to like make me really buy in on this. But since you didn't give that, I'm okay going with just like he was an absentee father, and or like he was an absentee father to his daughter, but he was, always kind of caring and watching from afar and all that stuff. And we see that we get like enough evidence that he did love her. It wasn't like he wasn't a dick and abandoning her. He was abandoning her. Yeah, probably, to protect her, or to say like, hey, this is more important, like saving the world from this thing that this guy is trying to plot and from Gozer is more important. Once that work's done, maybe I can come back and step back into the picture or whatever.
Speaking of the person whose plot it was, man, Ivo Shandler for a villain, like as kind of quote unquote the main villain of the series, like despite being dead the entire film, like both films, what a mastermind. Like, what an absolutely brilliant person.
Yeah.
Crazy, insane, power hungry, dressed up like he's the Kaiser from World War One. Like the Kaiser of Germany, with how he's decked out in his glass coffin. My gosh.
Yeah.
Like, you just see that, you're like, what a douche. Mm-hmm. And then it's played by J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. That was such a fun cameo. And you and I both had the same reaction. Like first time you see him in the coffin, you have no idea who he is. Even when he like kind of like starts to come to life and like freaks out podcast and turns, like he looked like another one of those actors that I've seen in kind of like that era of Second City kind of stuff. Like one of those guys I've
Mhm.
seen a lot. Um but then like he goes back, but then yeah, when he fully comes back to life, and again, like that's not really explained at all, but sure, he's back, whatever. um and
Well, I just assumed his. I assumed that he's technically not back to life. He's a like he is. You know how sometimes like the ghosts pop up and they're like skeletons and stuff.
Sure, I mean, but he is very like aware, like he is way more in control than any of the ghosts we see, kind of thing. Like
I just assume that's just because he's like he had the plan.
yeah,
Like it was his plan,
maybe.
right?
But whatever the case, like the fact that it's J.K. Simmons, he pops in, kind of like
Oh
starts
my
to give
gosh.
this Gozer monologue of like, I did all this for you, I brought you back so we can rule the world again. And then she just rips him in half, or they Gozer being a they, rips him in half. Is just like yep, that was J.K. Simmons showing up for a day of work, and shout out to him for having some fun with that and just
Oh my
getting
gosh.
included
He's just fantastic.
in this series as such an iconic character in the mythos of Ghostbusters. Yeah, J.K. Simmons just he does not miss. So shout out to him.
Nope, he's fantastic. Oh my gosh, he was fantastic. Olivia Wilde as Gozer.
Yeah, and that was what like
Excellent.
because she is uncredited in everything. Like even on IMDb now, she's finally in the credits. She was not like the last couple times I checked, but yeah, she's in there as because yeah, I saw it the first time. I was like, oh my god, like is that Olivia Wilde? Because like it looks hella like Olivia Wilde, and she does a great job kind of nailing that Gozer like look and movement that's kind of established there. And then like there are a couple other people credited. There's like the spirit of Gozer is credited, and then like Gozer's voice is credited as other people. And I was like, oh, I guess it's not Olivia Wilde. But then yeah, no, finally confirmed or verified that yep, it was Olivia Wilde. She's just not in a credited role in the film. But yeah, like she does a great job in that role. For admittedly, like the she is much more of a presence and an intimidating presence because we know of like Gozer as opposed to like what she actually does in the movie. I'm like, well, she does rip a guy in half, but
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that was another great little cameo there. Yeah. And then like we didn't, I mean, like all the original Ghostbusters showing up, great. Like one of the worst kept secrets about the movie was like, of course they're all coming back, cool. But like Annie Potts being in there was great. And then like it was weird how they did it because like the credits roll and it's like, and Sigourney Weaver, it's like she wasn't here, and then immediately
Yes, right?
it cuts to like the mid-credit sequence. I was like, okay, usually when they do that kind of thing, they do like they thank everybody else, then they do the mid-credit sequence, and then they'll like end that with "and Sigourney Weaver" or whatever. But okay. But yeah, that was a fun little like payoff gag between those two. I enjoyed that as well.
Seeing Sigourney Weaver and Bill Murray share a scene together again is just like magic.
Yeah.
Especially because Bill Murray actually like Bill Murray, like I have seen him phone in some roles before.
Oh, of course.
Where it's just like, or rather, let me phrase it. He plays a role where it's basically him just being Bill Murray. Bill Murray as this,
yeah,
like he's like a Christopher Walken type. But to see him actually like once again re-embody that role as Peter Venkman.
I mean, like even that, like Peter Venkman is just a Bill Murray type, so it's not like that's not really hard work for him.
It's not that, it's the energy that he brings to it. Like he's done, like when Bill Murray plays other roles, he doesn't bring a level of energy to it. Like I can count on one hand how many roles you can tell Bill Murray like actually cares about that he's done. And I can sum them up by saying anything that has that was done by Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And like being Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters.
I mean, I think that is a little reductive of Bill Murray's catalog
yes.
because like I mean, just off the top of my head, I will throw out Lost in Translation and Stripes as two others that are Bill
Yes.
Murray like actually
Hey,
caring.
still fitting on one hand. Still fitting on one
I mean,
hand.
but
Okay.
like the Wes Anderson movies alone are more than one hand. You're just
That's true.
you're pulling a cheat there on that one.
I did. I pull a cheat because I said one hand already? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
But like no, like you can tell when Bill Murray cares about a role. Like he brings a certain energy to it, and the energy he brings to being Peter Venkman is an old tired Peter Venkman. Yes, because Bill Murray is an old tired man.
Mm-hmm.
But he is just such a like, hey, the moment he goes, hey, flat top, like the moment that line hits, he is Peter Venkman, and he is just like currently a professor at NYU in marketing and commercial design.
Yep.
Like just he is that guy again, and it's like I didn't even think about how much I missed Peter Venkman until that moment. Even though like Peter Venkman, I've seen Ghostbusters in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched it for the in review that they did for Kind of Funny. Gosh, it's just so much like I love Bill Murray so much, but I really only love Bill Murray when he cares about what he's doing. And so there's not a lot of expectations that I see for like roles and stuff. Like this is a guy who literally like doesn't have an agent. Famously, he has a answering machine for a landline that like is where you submit like you give submissions to, and he has a PO box that you can send scripts to. That's it. That's the only way to get in touch with this guy for film stuff. And so like they say all the time about how difficult it is to like nail down a schedule. Like, is Bill Murray gonna be here?
Okay.
And so I don't know. Like, I just felt like I just really liked seeing was it a day's work? Sure, but I don't know, man. It's just nice to see them suit up again.
It's fun. Like it's fun, and like obviously he cares because it's a send off to Harold, and it is now a send off to that series, to that franchise that like he came back for. If they make another one, cool. He doesn't need to come back for that other one. It's very much like a Harrison Ford kind of situation. He's like, cool, I can come back. Didn't need to get killed off or anything, but he got to come back. He got to spiritually say goodbye to his friend, and maybe to this character even. So yeah, I thought, and that was another, like, just on that note, the end beat of that last sequence of Egon kind of drifting into the stars or whatever, and then just for Harold coming up on the screen, I was like, chef's kiss. So yeah,
that entire ending's perfect in my opinion. Like, are there complaints about something? Sure, I don't want to hear it. Like, to me, that's a perfect ending.
One of the other things I want to touch on that I mentioned kind of the other day when we were talking about this is like they nail so many of like the big hero moments leading up to that end sequence. Be it the first time the proton pack goes, and I had forgotten about this until watching the Kind of Funny thing, and they kind of like talked about this as one of those deleted scenes. Like the first time the proton pack fires, and it's just like boom, full blast hits the thing, like wide shot kind of thing. And then like a cut back to her just like holding the thing and like they nail that. Which if they had done the scene that is like in one of those early trailers or whatever of like she goes to fire it and it just kind of like sputters out or whatever, that would have been such a wet fart of a like a gag that I'm glad they didn't do that, because the moment like you've established she's competent, you've established she's getting help from the ghost of Egon already, so the fact she gets it working and then like boom, nails it, great. The sequence of them catching Muncher is really fun, obviously,
so
like
good.
Such a good homage, of course, to the Slimer stuff from the first Ghostbuster, but like but
instead of it being in a cramped hotel hallways and ballroom, it is in a open air town, and they are literally like, yeah, you're like, what kind of damage could she do? Well, she destroyed half of Main Street.
yeah. Yeah, she did, and we saw that. Yep. But yeah, that
And then she also almost murders the sheriff.
yes, that was a little strong. But yeah, like that.
Don't insult science in front of her, man. She'll come after
Mhm.
you. No, it's the dirt farmer calling her family crazy. Like
Yeah.
that's like that when he says that, because I'm like, I understand where the sheriff's coming from. And then he said something about crazy dirt farmer family like stuff, and I was like, you know what, sir? You sir?
Yeah. You didn't have to. You
You sir?
didn't have to do that.
No.
Yeah.
You know that this is a family that is going through some struggles and some difficulties. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to say that, sir. In front of your daughter, sir?
almost
Not a good look.
It's almost like all cops are bastards, you might say.
Oh no.
I mean, I imagine.
But Trevor, I don't.
You would definitely
yeah.
say that, Cameron. I know you would say that.
Yes, 100%.
But yeah, the going back to the Muncher stuff. Yeah, like I enjoyed just that character in general, but also shout out to
Remember
Josh
when
Gad
podcast pops. Josh Gad does the voice of it
as the voice of Muncher. But the
remember when podcast pops up with the Aztec death whistle and he thinks it's going to do something, and all it does is make Muncher spit bullets at him.
Exactly. Shoot these metal like rivets at him. But then the like after they get out of town or whatever, and they do have that chase. Hey, shout out to that friggin' RC car that is able to consistently outrun the Ecto-1 across that whole 5+ mile stretch of road.
That Ecto-1's not going more than 35.
Oh, I mean, like we see it rev up. We see it gets it up to 65, 70, something like that.
I know. I was joking. Though,
yeah,
because the joke is like the Ecto-1's a piece of junk.
Oh yeah, no. But that they do a great job, again with another big hero wide shot of them finally pulling the trigger on the ghost trap and sucking the Muncher into it, and then skidding into the dirt across the bridge is just so many great solid the first use of the proton pad, the first trap, the first ghost caught kind of thing, the firsts that they needed to hit, they hit. And they hit wonderfully in this. And
I would say the way that they hit it is quite iconic as well. It is owned by this film. It's not an homage to other films. It is in this film. It is its own thing, and they hit it, and it's iconic. Mm-hmm. I love it.
And they just do such a great job, kind of nailing those moments in a way that is that the power fantasy that these kids are getting to have. These kids fail in not unfair ways, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like things are being cheated for them. They succeed, and if they don't succeed, it's because it's because the cop is coming in on them because they're driving without a license and don't have a registration and blew up half of Main Street, or they fail because that's after Gozer gets a jump on them or something like that, or because even because Egon's trap had a flaw in that it doesn't have enough juice for all those traps. He clearly didn't test that effectively. So nothing feels cheap about when they face a hurdle or something like that.
Yeah, no, I will say, even leading up to getting to be able to catch Muncher, that moment of triumph is paid for by failure to capture it in the moment podcast tries throwing out the trap, and just it falls lopsided, and he's trying to fix it, and Muncher gets away. Muncher is careening through Main Street and doing this, and it's great because it's a massive payoff to them they follow the trail of Muncher's munching.
Yeah.
Is fantastic. It's paid off. They pay the dues so that when they capture Muncher, it feels like a triumph. And then to have that triumph swept out from under their legs by the cop. And you get that entire scene of okay, now they're now the Ghostbusters got busted. You get that cool fun scene of them in the prison as well, the jail.
You get the cheeky little "who you gonna call" line. Yeah.
It's done so well, and it helps establish it establishes a very like strong precedent of like there are like you don't just get to hand the hotel guy the bill and be like, cool, we're out. It doesn't work. You're kids. You just blew up half of Main Street. That's public property. Like, there are consequences to that. And so, like, they also, like, they deal with the ramifications of their own actions as well. And it's done in such a great way of not feeling like they got cheated.
Yeah.
They didn't get cheated. They were successful, but they don't get to gloat and parade around their triumph because they get swept out by under them because of the consequences of their own actions.
Yeah.
It's done so well with that. Love it.
I don't know if I have a ton more to really touch on, but I do want to give a shout out to, again, Paul Rudd. And especially like the chemistry between Paul Rudd and McKenna Grace is just a delight throughout. Like Paul Rudd playing like the fun teacher who's like really actually into science, but like he's working summer school, so he's blowing it off so he can do his own like tracking and experiments and stuff like that. And then just the Phoebe and Mr. Gruberson, Gary Gruberson interaction there in his office of like going through the different types of kind of seismic activity and just being like, I'm not an idiot. I know, like, I understand. He's like, clearly. Okay, well, here, like, you know, I can't even triangulate it. Did you use 3? Yes, I know how many sides are in a triangle. Well, I thought you were being obtuse. Wink. And then like she just does the very slow wink. He's like, was that a geometry joke? Yes, that's why I winked. So like just like pitch perfect scene between the two of them that like I just love so dearly. All of her horrible like cringe jokes hit for me.
Great.
They work wonderfully. Like she like because again it's such a great commitment to that character that
why can't you believe what atoms say?
Because they
make up everything.
Yeah.
Just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like so
good. It's because it is such Egon, like you could hear Harold Ramis saying these things and like doing those bits. We went and saw this at what used to be the Alamo here in town, now Majestic Theaters. And I think this is actually before you showed up, but like in the little pre-show that they had like an old, I'm guessing it was like a Second City sketch video or something like that, or maybe like SCTV or something like that. But it's like Harold Ramis doing like a PSA to the camera of like,
I showed up just in time.
You showed up just as that was going on. So it's like, yeah, like, you know, I'm so-and-so. Did you know that every year 20,000 people die? And like, it's that thing, like you think he's going to say of such and such disease. And no, it's just, did you know every year 20,000 people die? Hints that you might be dead include, and then he just kind of runs through 7 of just like significant loss of activity or inability to remember the 5 prior causes. Or like, and he's just like, it's just like running through like just super deadpan just because that was his voice and his great voice, and she just nails that perfectly. And it's fun seeing that up against Paul Rudd in that kind of role. Like Paul Rudd obviously very much filling the Rick Moranis type role in this, but with a little bit more cool as opposed to nerdy accountant boy. And yeah,
I don't know if you saw Rick Moranis' character's party.
Mm-hmm.
He was cool.
I mean, he definitely thinks he was cool.
No, you saw the party he was doing, dude. It was a rockin' party.
Okay.
It had food. It had people were there. There was.
I mean,
nobody's dancing.
Just because he throws a party doesn't mean he is cool.
Also, that hot blonde girl was super into him.
Sure,
it was great.
Sure, Cameron. But yeah, just again, shout out to Paul Rudd and again, like endless shout outs to McKenna Grace. Like this is one of those like it'll never happen because it's a genre movie and it's a Ghostbusters Afterlife. But like, I would love to see her get some kind of awards recognition for just how perfectly she embodies this character.
She did such a great job. I really can't wait to see the future for her career, like what it looks like, what role she continues to take on in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I will have to say I love from the meet cute to the kind of like hey, yeah, we kind of did that thing when we were dogs thing between Paul Rudd and like Gruberson and their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And the way, like, honestly, I love the movie sets up like the kids are more responsible than the mom, is great. You have like, it's set up to be like, yeah, she kind of doesn't have her shit figured out. And then you find out later, like, yeah, she kind of like got this bomb dropped on her when her husband took off. And so she's like, doesn't have her shit together. And like, guess what? I relate to that heavily. So
Yeah.
like, and it's interesting to see how she pulls her, like, it's done in such a great way where she still gets her own arc.
Mm-hmm.
And it finishes with her finding, solace in her biggest hang up in life is that she didn't, whatever her father was doing, he thought was more important than being in her life. And then for her to discover his, for lack of a better term, shrine to her
Mm-hmm.
and her life, whether it was, oh my gosh, that I teared up at that moment because there's newspaper articles, photos,
Yeah.
like anything he could get about her, he got about her, whether it was
Mhm.
getting photos or whatnot. Like clearly the mom's in the scene somewhere because who else was sending those to him?
Yeah.
But the idea that she understands that like whatever her father was doing, he was doing because she was the most important thing to him, speaks volumes. And then for them to reunite at the end and have like a proper reconciliation felt amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's like, shout out to that ending that had the balls to like do a full on like Harold Ramis Egon kind of ghost, and then had the restraint to keep him silent and to not throw in somebody else like doing a Harold Ramis impression and talking and getting like, last one-liners with the guys or anything like that. Just like they're able to have him say so much with just kind of the visage of the character, and his smiles or his nods or that kind of stuff is just like in an era where we obviously are seeing that more and more, like as a tool of storytelling, from like the Star Wars de-aging stuff like that, or whatever the case may be. Even Blade Runner 2049 does it and kind of stuff. Like, I thought they did just a really great job of utilizing that. I mean, again, that tool as a storytelling device. It's not gratuitous, and it serves the purpose that the entire movie has been set up to pay off. So like, yeah, I mean, more than anything, like the movie is a send off to Harold Ramis. Maybe even more so than like a Ghostbuster movie. And like they spend 2 hours justifying why they're going to have that moment at the end. In I think a really smart and fortunate way. I also wanted to, you mentioning like, oh, they kind of like, set up that obviously she's not, she doesn't have her shit together and all that stuff. I love that even in the, like, I love that there are like a lot of small moments in the intro bit that kind of like set up who these characters are. She's she's cutting Finn's hair or whatever, or Trevor's hair. Like, but then going into the Phoebe obviously stealing, electricity from the neighbors or whatever and amping up their juice or whatever. Like, so clearly she is super genius. Great. But then I love there's a small moment in the road trip kind of going across country, and like you get this little montage of like ghost towns and stuff like that. But like the car breaks down at one point and Trevor's the one fixing the car up to establish that he's, mechanically minded and automotively minded and will eventually be able to, with a little bit of ghost help from Egon, get the Ecto one up and running again.
Just that little final touch.
Yeah.
That little final
soldering of those wires or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, just lots of wonderful little setups and then payoffs throughout the whole film. I like, obviously I mentioned the other night when we did it, but like I love how not only is catching Muncher like a wonderful like payoff to the first kind of ghost, but like the fact that in releasing him, he ends up being able to help them, much a la like a Slimer kind of thing, to kind of free the equipment from the jail within the jail, as podcast would say. So yeah, like just lots of great little beats like that. There were a couple things where I was like, I think the first time around I was like, well, wait, what about this? Or what about like, and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, whatever. Like, even those small nitpicky things that I might like touch on, like if I don't get hung up on those and I'm just along for the ride, it's a hell of a fun ride. And I had a great time with it. So, yeah. Any final thoughts from you on Ghostbusters Afterlife before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say there's something about this film that I think, if there's one way that I look at the Ghostbusters films, it's that they each stand apart from each other and stand on their own. I grew up watching the first two films just like emphatically. Rented them from from Blockbuster multiple times. Ghostbusters 2 only, actually, because Ghostbusters 1 was rated PG-13, which means we had to watch a like TV recorded version from like TBS, and so it had been edited down. And so like I would like, and the thing is, I didn't like marathoning them. But like I used to watch them both separately, incessantly, and just like loving these films. And so like when you talked earlier about like where you are on the scale of like from every like the layman to Greg Miller, I am further on the Greg Miller side. I watched the real Ghostbusters cartoon. I watched the Extreme Ghostbusters television show in the 90s. Like I'm not a ghost head. I'm not a big like that big of a Ghostbusters fan where I want to join the local chapter or whatever. But like I do love these films in a way that I think they're very special. They stand alone on their own, and I have to say Afterlife is like for me is up there as well. Like it to me this is a film that is it perfect? No, but neither of the other two films. That you can make those same kind of like the same sort of critiques about Afterlife that you can make about Ghostbusters 1 and 2 that you can make about Afterlife. But at the end of the day, they stand on their own as really great movies, telling really great stories about people and characters and motivations and how they deal with, the struggles in their lives in the form of ghosts popping up. Like, is that crazy or is that like super simple? Yes, but it's done so well. And honestly, like, this being if, in my opinion, this is the best version of a legacy film you could ask for.
Yeah.
Because it stands on its own. If you had not seen the first two Ghostbuster movies and you saw this movie and you're like, wow, wait, there's two other movies about the guys that show up at the end? Great. Like it stands on its own as just being a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely shout out to Ghostbusters Afterlife. A wonderful continuation of the Ghostbusters franchise and potentially new beginning. Who knows where they go from here, but I think Jason Reitman did his dad proud in kind of picking on and taking on that legacy, which is like even that like that's a whole other conversation for another day, but just like that extra level of legacy to this film of like father directing and then the son kind of now picking up the mantle and continuing that story on is just like that's really cool. So shout out to that as well.
Yeah. For years he denied that he was ever going to do it. So
yeah. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me here to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, also just thank you for going and seeing it with me because, as I mentioned the other night, there were so many moments in the movie where, because I had already seen it, like I knew it was coming, and I was just so excited to be there for your reaction to those moments. Just a ton of fun there, including the J.K. Simmons reveal was just such a fun oh, I wonder what Cameron's going to think about this. So many great little bits like that.
I have to say I had a smile on my face from beginning to end on that film.
Yeah.
Like I had just so much joy coming from that film.
Indeed. So. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
I do want to give a shout out to that D Plus show. It's another podcast that we do. Trevor and Frank recently just did an episode on the show Dinosaurs, which is one of my older favorite shows. It is a really fun show about people in dinosaur suits doing a sitcom,
Yep.
and which is its own brand of insanity. And so that was a recent episode. We just wrapped up doing Star Wars Visions the week before. So there's a wide breadth of catalog for that D Plus show. Go check it out. You'll find, if you have a favorite Disney film or series, we probably did a feature on it. Go check it out.
I mean, there are plenty we have not done, so there's probably a ton out there that you will not find. But let us know what you want, and we can throw it into the schedule at some point. We're about to go into the holiday season here in December, so we'll have all sorts of fun like Home Alone 2 and Santa Claus 2 to kind of follow up on us doing the precursors last year. Jingle All the Way is probably going to make its way into the docket for December.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, keep an eye out of that D Plus show. This week, tentatively, is going to be Hawkeye. The first couple episodes of that are supposed to go live. So depending on how we schedule it out and how that works, that's the plan for this week. But yeah, check that out. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and I will echo that D Plus show shout out. I'll also give a shout out to this last week's That News You Care About, where Logan and I sat down with the Game Awards and kind of made our predictions for who the big winners are going to be this year. And we'll see. Logan has basically locked in. He's planning on making a trip out here to Arizona in January. So whoever wins the this predictions bet is going to be buying the other or getting Portillo's from the other player this time around. So fun little added stakes on that one. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.